and thank you for joining me once again for my project Share Your Story. Today I have Taurus all the way from, well, I'm in Adelaide, but all the way from Washington. So for me, that's a long way away. Thank you for joining me, Taurus, and for volunteering to share a little bit about your story and your journey as a man in today's society. I'll hand it over to you to introduce yourself.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you for having me. So I go by Taurus the Gray, hence the gray and the beard. There's a kind of play off of Lord of the Rings and Gandalf the Gray in that. But
Beautiful.
for all those nerds out there, they'll get that reference. Um, I started out always being that overly sensitive guy,
Mm.
and definitely grew up in a household that was very chaotic
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of emotional abuse. And I found at a very young age, I saw things that most of my family didn't. And because of that, I think it really pushed me to do a lot of self introspection and reflection.
Yeah.
Um, when you grow up in that type of environment where they don't see it and you do, you can often feel like you're a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, if you will.
And what do you
Um,
mean that you were seeing?
I beg your pardon?
What were you seeing that other people weren't seeing?
Patterns.
Okay. Yeah.
I noticed patterns. I would notice that, excuse me, when I would try to talk about my feelings, because that's how I operated,
Mm-hmm.
that they would often respond focusing on theirs, taking away from mine.
Okay. Yeah.
And it almost like by me speaking about my feelings of what bothered me or boundaries that I did not feel like were being respected, they would almost weaponize that in a sense to therefore I'll validate them you speaking about their feelings and focusing entirely on theirs.
Mm-hmm.
And over the years, it's taken many dips in the road, if you will, to kind of come to a place of being more mindfully aware of it, not taking it personally, not internalizing it. I've always had a sense of a spiritual essence, if you will, within myself, but it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't until the last 3 or 4 years that I really started kind of stepping into that spiritual path,
Yeah.
and definitely had quite a few dark night of the souls along the way, moments where I've completely lost faith and felt completely like everything that I believed in and who I was completely shattered, and I had to rediscover myself and rediscover that faith and truly question within myself, what is it that I believe in, what is it that I'm striving for, and who is it that I am as a person and as an individual.
Mm.
And I
So
know that
when you hit those moments, can I just ask, when you hit those moments, I mean, I've had my own moments of those, but when you've hit those really low moments, and you've called it the dark night of the soul, but for other people who maybe don't understand what that means, it's pretty much feels like you hit rock bottom. What
yeah,
does it
yeah.
feel like? Like, how did you get yourself through those moments? Because that's something that's particularly for men's mental health is really important to discuss. How did you get through those dark days?
Yeah, I feel like the best way I've ever heard it described was often they say, how do you get through hell? Well, you got to go straight through it.
You do.
And it's kind of like that scene in The Count of Monte Cristo where he talks about, you're stranded upon a rock and it's storming all around you, and you don't feel like that sunlight is going to bask upon you. There is no light at the end of the tunnel.
Mm.
And often the only way that I've gone through it is just pushing through, trying to self introspect more and be more mindfully aware of where I needed to grow.
Yeah,
And a
and
lot of
and
times when you do hit rock bottom, it's really hard to do that.
yeah, so to go through the dark days, it's you have to feel it, don't you? You have to feel all of it, and you have to not, I know a lot of people when they start to go into, the darkness or something that's quite difficult, a lot of people avoid or try not to feel you know, what is actually coming up. So they just keep themselves busy and they pretend it's not happening. But to actually get through it and to actually come out the other side, you have to feel it, you have to experience it, and you have to process and
Oh,
go
yeah.
inwards. You know, what is actually happening here? What am I feeling? And just allow yourself to feel it. And a lot of people don't do that at the moment, unfortunately. So
You know, you're so right with that. Um, I firmly believe in it's much easier said than done,
yeah.
but I firmly believe that it actually hurts more to avoid the pain than it is to sit with it and feel it.
Mm,
We feel in the moment that I just need release from this. I just need to numb it or push it away or avoid it or distract ourselves from it. But in reality, from personal experience and self-reflection, I found anytime I've avoided those emotions, it often actually hurts me more and causes that pain to be more unbearable
yes.
than it would have been just to face it and sit with it. You
A
know,
hundred, a
it's
hundred percent.
those feelings.
And I say, I liken it to, like, you know, with a kid, kids are often scared of, you know, monsters in the dark or monsters under the bed. And I liken, you know, what we're experiencing to that. If you leave that monster under the bed or in the shadows, it gets bigger and it gets scarier and it just sort of takes over. But if you actually just looked under the bed and had a look, it's not that big and scary. You know, you just face it. It's like, oh yeah, that's not so bad. I can face this now. I can deal with this.
Yeah, and I think it's partially it's the fear of the unknown.
Mm,
It's the fear of facing those feelings again, because the feelings themselves are attributed to usually very traumatic experiences.
yeah,
So it's almost like without even realizing it, we feel that if we feel those feelings again, we're going through that all over again.
yeah.
And it's scary. It is. Like, and I know I say the dark night of the soul, and I understand that you get what I mean by that. But yeah, I think it's spiritually speaking, it's very much hitting rock bottom
Mm,
on all levels:
yeah,
physical, mental, emotionally, spiritually, energetically. You just every aspect of what you believe, what you have faith in, who you are, just is shattered, and
yes.
you're left completely, with the lack of a better word, stripped naked of any essence of what you hold to be true of your world and your universe around you.
Mm,
And you kind of feel a little faithless,
yeah.
directionless. There's no wind in your sails. There's no rudder guiding you. There's no path on the horizon. Um, and that's a scary thing. And I think, like you said, attributing it to hitting rock bottom, where at that point in time, the only place to go is up. Is to climb out of that hole. And a lot of times it can feel like no matter it's pointless to try, because every time you try, it's like being in a hole that's dug in the ground and it's raining. Every time you try, the ground's all muddy and you're just gonna slip back down, and you're not gonna be able to grab a hold of anything get a grip to pull yourself up, even one hand at a time.
Yeah.
And that's the scary place to be. It really is. I know my one of the things I've struggled with is when I've been in those places to not self isolate.
Yeah.
You know, to not feel that reaching out to others would end up just being a burden on them.
Mm,
You know, and I think we all have our own version of that for whatever reason. From our unhealed traumas and wounds, we all have our own demon in that sense of how we justify not reaching out to other people, or believing that there is a way out of that darkness.
100%. And, you know, I work with both men and women, and both men and women do have that feeling sometimes that they are a burden if they reach out, but it seems to be more prevalent in men from what from just working with both men and women, that reaching out to people is not done as much as what it is for women. I'm not sure if that's due to conditioning or what it is at the moment, but I think it's really important that men, if they're going through something, and it doesn't have to be, rock bottom. It might just be that they're going through something tough, on a day-to-day basis, that they reach out if they need to talk to other men or someone that they can talk to. It doesn't have to be a man, but I know, men talking to men seems to work. So
Yeah, and that's a deep rabbit hole because I know that as men, we are a collective of as men, but we are also individuals, and I think we
Yes.
all share a lot of similar reasons to why it's hard for us. But I also think we, as individuals, have our own individual reasons that are subjective to us and us alone
Mm.
as to why that's hard for us. I
Mm.
know me personally, um, because of the environment I was raised in and because of the dynamics, I was very much received the message that, and of course, I didn't understand that that's what this was at the time, but that being a man and being in my masculine energy was not safe. It was
Okay.
bad. And so I was very much in my feminine energy growing up. And,
Mm.
I often felt that, why am I so sensitive? What's wrong with me? Why am I always so affected and feel people's emotions? And why do I take everything so personally? And honestly, I had to really, really try to learn to start to balance out my
Mm.
energies and kind of, go straight through hell to try to find a way back to my masculine energy. But then I also came to the realization that when you're balancing out your energies as a man or a woman, it can be applied to either or. Um, when you go to when you're trying to get towards the energy that you feel like you're most best fit in, um, and sometimes people will overcompensate and go to the extreme.
Yes. Yeah.
So I found that being in my feminine energy and disconnected from my masculine wasn't doing me any good.
Mm.
But then going to my extreme of my masculine and being disconnected from my feminine wasn't good.
No.
So I had to learn to, and it's still something I'm still obviously learning about and striving to get better at. But I had to learn how to step into my masculine frame and embrace my masculine energy and predominantly be in my masculine energy, but still have a relationship and be connected with my feminine.
100%. Yeah.
I once had a friend describe it as your masculine is your doer, your
Yes.
feminine is your giver,
Yeah.
and they have to have a relationship. They have to trust each other and work together.
Mm.
And even if you're a man and you're masculine, you still have to be have a relationship and be somewhat connected to your feminine. Just like if you're a woman who's in your feminine, you still have to be predominantly in your feminine, but still have a relationship and be connected to your masculine. They
100%.
balance each other out.
You need the duality of both. And I speak to men that I work with about this as well, because you can't, if a man is just embracing his masculine and is just working on masculine, but totally ignores the traits and qualities of the feminine within him, to a woman, and I'm speaking from a woman's perspective, a man will come across as being robotic. Will have, it's like they're cold, it feels like they have no emotions, and we know that's not true. So men have
Mhm.
all of that within them, but if you're
Mhm.
only going to embrace your masculinity, it feels like you're not a whole human being, that there's something missing from a
Oh yeah,
woman's perspective.
no, definitely.
And you know
You know,
um,
yeah, I think that there's a lot of aspects that are going into it. There's a lot of social engineering
mm,
that's being done to society, especially in Western societies and culture. And generally, the way that they go about trying to destroy um, a society or a
mm,
country or a nation is first they have to go after the men. Once you go after the men, then they're not there to stand up against them going after the women.
I'm
And
pretty
once they
sure
go after the women,
then it's the
then
kids.
there's no one there to stand up for anyone when they go after the children.
And that's where we're at right now.
And very much so. And
Yes.
it's very much that's part of why they systematically are trying to destroy the nuclear family.
Mm. And it
And I
seems to
could
be
I can go
working
into
at the moment.
oh yeah, no, it is unfortunately. It breaks the heart, but it is. And I remember growing up, they always used to tell us as men, hey, the more women you sleep with, the more of a man you are. And I remember thinking when I heard that, that's really stupid. That doesn't make any sense.
That's
That just makes no. And I remember anytime a couple of me and my friends looked at that, I was like, that just doesn't make any sense.
no.
And we always thought that that bought into that were like, dude, that's stupid, man. That doesn't make you more of a man. That just makes you kind of a dog. you know,
Yes.
and not like in the cuddly loyal way, but like in the kind of way.
Yes.
And so and I found that, and this is like the example that I'm kind of used to reference this, that the part of how they divide men and women is they pin each other against each other. They tell each other the same message, but in different ways. And they allow that message then to validate, well, if it's okay for the other to do it, then we should do it too.
Yes.
So they tell men, hey, the more women you sleep with, the more of a man you are. And then they tell women, well, hey, if it was okay for men to do it, you should be able to do it too.
You
It's
should be able to
liberating if
do
you
it
do it. It's like,
too.
well, was it really okay if men did it? Because I can't think of any person who has any integrity who would actually look at that as something to be say, yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
So it's they want us demoralized. They want us acting in very low vibrational patterns, and they want us blaming each other and focused on making the other the scapegoat to validate our bad decisions rather than self-reflecting and looking upon, excuse me, the things that we're doing and saying, is this really helping me? Is this really helping me heal and grow and become a better version of myself? Or is this really me just trying to fill a void because I have a hole in my love cup and avoid the feelings that are really at the deeper root of why I'm doing these toxic patterns?
Mm. Yeah, I love that.
If that, I don't know if that
I
makes
just made a note because this is very much, what's sort of prevalent in society now is it's and a lot of people are blaming the other sex. Men are blaming women, women are blaming men, rather than taking time to introspect and say, okay, what part did I play in this? Because we always play a part, no matter what happens, and I know some people get really, really triggered when I say, even in a relationship where someone has cheated and you've been cheated on, you've still played a part in that. Yes, you weren't the one that cheated,
oh, yeah.
but something's happened along the way to get to that point in your relationship. So you've played a part in it. And rather than just blame the other person, which you need to probably do sometimes for a little while, introspect and say, well,
I very much agree.
what is my part?
Sorry, say that again.
Oh, no, I was just ranting.
Oh, okay. It cut out, so I want to make sure I didn't
Oh,
misunderstand what you
no,
said.
no, I didn't
Yeah,
add anything.
it's. I think that one of the things, because like I was telling you before, I do a live on TikTok that it's not speed dating. It's
Mm,
actually intended to be a live focused on helping conservative and traditional leaning men and women who are looking for a monogamous relationship and life partnership. Now, I
mhm,
do, you know, in my heart of hearts, kind of lean more towards people who are looking for that spiritual counterpart
mhm.
to build a conscious relationship with. But I also know that that's not going to be the majority. However, I've noticed that even though it does attract a lot of the modern feminists and a lot of the woke activists because they're very much angry with anything that's not all about them. But aside from that, the one narrative that I've noticed between men and women that's consistent is that when one or the other tries to voice what they're going through,
Mm,
not all, but a lot of the other side will tend to immediately go, well, what about us? We go
shut
through
it
it too.
down. Yeah,
And what they feel to realize is like, they never said you didn't. They're just talking about their
that's
experiences.
right. And
So why are you weaponizing their experiences to validate yours?
and
Now,
I
if you'd
have a
like to have a
yeah, I have a post.
sorry.
I have a post up at the moment. It's not mine, it's someone else's, but he's no longer on TikTok, and it's what it's like to be a man, and that's sort of what's triggered me to share, to do this thing with men and to talk about the story. But a lot of the comments that come from women, it's like, well, you know, they try to make it about them, but actually it's got nothing to do with the women at the moment in this one, and it goes both ways. He's just talking about his experience
Oh
as a
yeah, no, it
man.
always does.
Yeah, so it's okay.
I
We
think
need to
I
learn to
think yeah.
listen to each other again.
Mhm. We need to learn to have empathy and compassion.
Yes.
And I'll be honest, I can try to be mindful and look at both perspectives, but since I am a man, I'm always going to be predominantly in the male perspective, and
Hmm.
I try to objectively look at both because both sides have their own version of it, and to
Yes.
say they didn't would be a farce. But uh, from a man's perspective, much of society, and I think a lot of this is promoted more so with social media, a lot of it, and also what's being taught in the colleges.
Mm.
But a lot of society bolsters up women, and
Yeah,
it tears men down and blames them for everything. Now, that's not to say that women don't go through their experiences, because God knows they do.
I know.
But often then when we have, as men, experiences or preferences, they're shamed,
Mm.
they're invalidated, or they're deflected upon and brought back to what women experience.
Yeah.
And so, even though I do agree that we have to listen to both, one of the reasons why I personally feel, and I've noticed this and seen it firsthand through my lives, but also with friends and my own experiences, that there's more good men out there than there are good women in the West right now. And that's not bashing on women.
No, that's
It's
fine.
just that when you look at the amount of men that are dating versus the amount of women that are dating, the numbers are very they're not they're not synonymous with each other. There's I
Mm.
want to say a very disparaging a gap between the two.
Yeah.
Now I don't think that's it's I think there's a lot of factors that go into it, but one of the reasons why so many men are just checked out from dating, and ironically enough, the guys that are checked out are not the guys that are looking for recreational fun. They're the guys who
No.
are wanting a life partnership and a wife and
Yeah.
kids and a family, and would love nothing more than to make his whole life purpose about his wife and their family, and to have that partnership, that
Mm.
that power couple, if you will. But those are the guys who are just checked out. They're like, what's the point? So they would much rather be alone and work on their peace, because striving to find one of those good women when you have to sift through all the toxic women, that's like finding a grain of sand on the on in the desert or on the beach, and so a lot of times we just don't want to try. And if you look at
Yeah.
the data, it's and I don't know, there's different studies. I know that there's a social media study done, and I've heard many references to where a lot of the data promotes that 80% of the women are only going after 20% of the men.
Yeah. I
So
even
only
heard
about 10 to
a
20
different
percent
stat
of
to
the
that.
men. Have you've heard different
Well,
stats
I
for
heard it
that?
was about
That
10% of the men that they're after. So, there's this top 10% of men
well,
who, what do they
yeah.
have that the women want? I don't know. But there's this top 10% of men that women are after, and then all the rest of the men are just there. And it's like, well, what about the rest of the men? So
Yeah. And unfortunately, what's happening is, the from what I've gathered and what I've observed, is that a lot of the characteristics of what these top 10 to 20% of men have are more based on superficiality
yeah,
and
okay.
materialism. They're not
And
based on integrity, honor, morals, values, life goals.
yeah.
It's more about the societal status, the money, how good a shape, how tall they are, and just other things that don't really speak to their character or to who they are as a man, or how they would be as a partner, a husband, or a father. And
Mm,
that's sad, because that's where our society has gone, where it's praising very materialistic traits as high value,
mm.
and it's demeaning such good traits in masculinity.
Yeah, and
And you
I
have to,
guess what I don't like in that is that, women, the women that are, or if it's all women or most women who are after this top 10% of men, or, with superficial status, it's like a lot
Mhm.
of women in that, what do they bring to the party? And that's, I know this has been questioned on social media before. Like, if you're after this man who supposedly is, and I don't believe in ranking, but if, these top men, whatever they are, or whoever they are, what do you bring,
Mhm.
to the table that you can offer this man? And yet there's nothing that is said that the woman can bring. She just wants this man because that's her criteria. So I think it needs to go both ways, and we need to start looking
Oh,
at
definitely.
less superficial stuff when it comes to dating and relationships now, and actually look at who the human being is. What values do
Mhm.
you have? What beliefs do you have? What type of life do you want to live? And start looking for a relationship in that space, rather than, what does he look like? What does he earn? What does he have? All of that type of stuff. So um
Yeah.
it's a tricky space. So so have you had much success on your lives with dating,
Um,
with bringing men and women together?
we have connected some people for
Mhm.
sure.
Beautiful.
Usually it's the people that are there for the right reasons. and who are putting themselves out there. And it doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen. I always make
Mm.
the joke that if anybody finds their partner in the live and they get married, I better get an invite to the wedding. I'll be that guy sitting in that back row with my beard as my plus one. Just kind of my inflated ego is like, I accomplished this.
Well,
Joking, obviously,
while you're
but
talking about your
you
beard,
know,
I guess I wanted to ask, because you did say, prior to doing some life changes and your own introspective work, that, being a man and being in your masculine didn't feel safe. Now, obviously, you've got a very big beard, so if this goes on a podcast, they won't be able to see, but you've got a very big beard and you look very manly. So what is it like now? Like, do you feel comfortable in society, in general, being a man and being in your masculine, which you didn't before?
yeah, so the journey of my beard, when I was growing up, I always wanted to grow a beard when I was
Mhm.
younger. But a lot of times when I tried, I felt like I would be judged or I looked grimy. And it took me many failed attempts until I realized the only way I could truly take that journey for me would be to start from a clean shave and just let it go
Yep.
and not trim it at all. I kind of feel like I look at the beard metaphorically like a tapestry. You wouldn't
Mhm.
take the Mona Lisa and trim part of it away, therefore it would be cease to the tapestry of the Mona Lisa. So why would your beard be any different?
Yep.
Ancient cultures used to believe that a woman's power was in her hair and a man's power was in his hair and his beard.
Mhm.
And a beard's kind of like a tattoo. When before you get it, or even when you're getting it, you only abstractly think you know what it's going to look like. But like with any journey, it's not the destination. That's the point. It's the journey of how you get there.
Mhm.
And I think part of for me, it's a personal and spiritual path of just taking that journey and commitment to myself to do something that I want to do for me.
Yep.
Do I get crap from it? Yeah, a little here and there, but usually I get more people complimenting it. But for me, honestly, it's something that I've wanted to do for a long time. My goal is to get it down to my belly. So I still have a ways to go.
You do.
I'm a little over 11 months into my beard from starting from a clean shave. And actually, if you go look at my content on TikTok, you can see the last time I was clean shaven and slowly as it progresses over the last 11 months. Um, but I part of it is kind of I think when it started, it was kind of a F you to society for
Yeah,
saying
okay.
we're not allowed to I'm not allowed to do this as a man. But as I got older and I really started looking at the deeper reasons as to why I wanted to do it, that very quickly ceased to be. And
Mm.
it became just about this is for me. This is for
Yep.
nobody else.
Yep.
You know.
And I think that's
Um
really
a
important.
lot of, a lot of
When we're younger, both men and
well,
women, often we do things to buck against society and say, F you,
mm,
I'm doing this because society tells me I can't. But if you actually just, go inward and say, well, what actually do I want? And do it from a place of
mhm.
openness and, love, really, then
Well, yeah.
you can live your life in alignment without being angry and without saying fuck you to the world.
No, no, you're definitely. It's funny. I sometimes I like to talk to guys about their beards and why they don't want to grow their beard out. Because I think most guys, when they're in the presence of a guy that has like an epic Duck Dynasty beard, part of them is like, dude, I'm not worthy to be in this beard's presence. And then the other part of them is like, what if I could have that someday? And one of the top reasons, other than it itches, which in reality the itching phase only lasts for a couple months. It really doesn't last as long as everyone thinks it does.
Okay.
But the top reason I've heard guys say is my woman won't let me. It's like, wait, I'm sorry, she won't let you.
We won't let
I'm
you.
sorry, does she have spine as a conversation piece on the table for her gal pals?
Mm,
Does she have your manhood in a coin purse? She
yeah.
won't let you. It's
Mm,
like, dude, one, he's making her accountable of something that he's not being accountable within himself. Because
yeah.
if he wants to grow a beard, he can grow a beard, but he's not growing it. That's not her fault. It's his
Mm,
fault.
yes.
But what the real reason is that deep down he's afraid that she won't support or love him for it, and
Mm,
he'll lose her for it.
yeah.
After as well, if she loves you, even if she's not a big fan of it, she'll support you. And wouldn't the better perspective to be is, well, why don't you grow it out and do what you want, and then find a woman that can't get enough of it? Wouldn't that be the more? Wouldn't you want a woman that loves the part of you that is you embracing who you want to be? Wouldn't that make
Mm,
more sense?
yeah. Yeah, definitely.
You know,
Yeah,
I
that's
I
tricky.
have a friend of mine. She always says the women that don't want a big burly bearded man are demons. Now, I don't necessarily agree with the demon part about it. She's obviously being facetious, but a lot of times, guys, I don't think they do it because they're afraid that women won't like them.
Hmm.
You know, a lot of guys are willing to conform because they want women to like them. But what they don't realize, a woman can't truly love a man if she doesn't respect him. But how can she
100%. And
respect him if he doesn't love and respect himself
this
first?
is so important. And what I find, again, this is working with the men that I've worked with, is a lot of the time men in relationships pedestal the woman and allow the woman eventually to be the one that wears the pants, if you want to put it bluntly. And she basically controls everything. So they're no longer the masculine man in the relationship. She's basically controlling everything because they want her to love him, you know, for who he is, but then she loses respect for him because he hasn't just lived his life and he's not the authentic, you know, man that he could and should be. So this is really important to note. It's like
Yeah.
in a relationship, you know, you have to have your own boundaries and you have to live your life authentically for the other person, for a woman to respect you. And if she doesn't love you because you've grown a beard, she's not the right woman, you know, for you. And
Then she's
that's
not the one for you.
she's not the one for
Exactly. Yeah.
you. And that's
She's
hard
not the
because
one for
people don't
you.
want to let go in
Like,
relationships, like they just hold on so tightly. So I think this is really important to talk about with men. It's like, you know, you've still got to be yourself in a relationship. You can't change just because, you know, she says so. You have to be yourself and then she will respect you more. And yeah, it's a hard one. But
yeah, would it bother you if I had to smoke? Would that bother you at all?
no, I can't smell it. That's
I
fine.
just I just like to be respectful because like I said, I just want to respect your boundaries.
No, no, that's
You're being
okay.
kind
Maybe
enough
in
to take a
person, but no,
little
I
bit of
don't care.
time,
You
but
go
I
ahead.
like to be courteous.
I would like to
But
finish up soon anyway, because I like to keep these short
yeah,
just so that people can listen to them and
definitely.
actually finish them.
You know, I think a lot of times the biggest thing that I see men face is that most of us are good men.
Mm,
Do I think there's a lot of nice guys out there that are complete pushovers and have been emasculated and are just going along with the trend because they want everyone to like them and they want to go along with the herd? Yeah, but I think there's a lot of good men out there that think for themselves and have
mm,
a lot of integrity and would make amazing partners for a good woman. But what a lot of the men are seeing is that most women nowadays, not all, but most women nowadays do not embody what makes a good woman.
mm,
Now, I will say this. I think a high value man is not based upon his money. It's not based upon his height, how good of shape he is, or his status. I think it's based upon his integrity.
mhm.
So in my mind, if a guy is sleeping around, that doesn't make him a high value man. If he's focused on himself and trying to better himself and he's trying to be in alignment with his integrity and his honor, and he's trying to strive to always become that better version of himself, because I always say you don't want to date somebody who's loyal to their emotions. You want to date somebody who's loyal to their morals and values and principles.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of those good men out there, you know, they're keeping to themselves,
Mm,
because all they see on social media and throughout society is everything's our fault. Everything's blame us. Everything hashtag kill all men, hashtag bathe in male tears, hashtag toxic masculinity. Heck, anytime when guys say that, hey, I don't want a woman that's promiscuous and sleeping around, they're like, oh, you're insecure, you're controlling. It's like, no, if he was insecure, he wouldn't be voicing his preference. The fact that he's willing to say it, even though you're going to give him opposition, says he's pretty secure in his preference. But never mind that contradicts them. We're basing this off of logic here. So when guys do voice their preferences, they're shamed for it.
they
They're
are.
emasculated.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, what's happened is a lot of guys that have gone along with it and drank the Kool-Aid, they then in turn, to pander to those women, will then try to tear those men down to make themselves look more high valuable to those women.
Yes.
But what they don't realize is those women don't want those men. They want the top 20, because the women that they're pandering to are very much unhealed in their masculine energy. going after guys for superficial reasons.
Ugh.
So what ends up happening is they go after those top 20%, and those top 20 to 10 to 20% only want to use them for recreational purposes, and they keep sleeping with them. So that means the majority of those women are all sleeping with the same 20% of men.
Gross.
And then they're like, why can't I find a good man? It's like, well, sweetie, I hate to break it to you, and I don't mean that condescendingly, but you keep giving it up to guys that are dogs. And all the guys that would be loyal and loving, you're treating them the way that those guys treat you. It's like, do you not see the disconnect there?
So it's a vicious cycle.
Like,
So what you need to learn from this is do the work, get yourself to a point where you are good and, you know, you're on a healing journey or whatever you want to call it. Some men don't like, you know, that term healing journey, but do the introspective work and get yourself to a point where you feel comfortable in who you are. When you're at that point, then you can attract, you know, if we're talking about men, then you can attract a woman into your life that matches your frequency and that matches, you know, who you are. And she will be comfortable in herself. So you don't want to go into that cycle of attracting, you know, those people that are in that superficial world.
One of the things I agree completely. And one of the things that I've noticed that I see both men and women doing, right? And I think we're all guilty of this to some extent. Is most people don't want to realize women want to blame all men, men want to blame all women. We have to realize it's like, okay, dude, gentlemen, ladies, let's be honest here. All the toxic people that you've dated, you're the common denominator of all those people. And it's not saying you deserve that treatment, but there's some unhealed wounds and trauma within you that cause to see the red flags as shiny, shiny, pretty little things. And you chose not to look at them.
So
you
good.
Keep telling yourself,
I'm like, pretty blunt when I work with people, and I point that out all the time, and it doesn't always go down well, but it is very true. If you're attracting the same type of person, the same pattern into your life, what is the common denominator? It is you. And again, like you said, it's not that you deserve these things, but look inside yourself now. What is it within you that's attracting this type of person that treats you like a piece of shit? Or what's in it with you that attracts a person that's controlling, or whatever it is that you're attracting? Change yourself and you will change the type of person that you attract into your life.
Well, and unfortunately, and a lot of people don't want to look at this, but like, look at the modern feminist movement and look at what the red pill movement is. They both are two sides of the same coin. And they are both teaching women one thing and then teaching them another thing that contradicts that.
Yeah.
So it's like the modern feminism movement says, hey, women, you need to be afraid of all men. But if you go around and sleep with random guys that you don't know you can trust, that's how somehow liberating. It's like, that doesn't make any sense. There's a disconnect with that. or you know, and they do the same stuff to men too. And you could go on both sides back and forth all day long. You know, that's you could do that all day long till the cows come home. And you know, it's a long way for a train don't come. You know, until you stop and realize, like, wait a minute, we're like on a hamster wheel, just going in circles. Yes. We're not getting anywhere. And I think a lot of times people want to have ideology tell them how to think and feel because it's easier to go along with the crowd than it is to stop and be like, you know what, I'm gonna go to the march to the beat of my own drum. I'm gonna go on my own path. I'm not gonna go along. I'm gonna deviate and go against the grain.
It is.
I'm gonna do what's right for me.
It's harder, but it is obviously more rewarding when you do that, when you live a life that is in alignment with who you are and what feels good for you. So I love that. Taurus, do you have anything else that you would like to share before we finish up, for men or about you or anything at all, really?
You know, like I said, I think a lot of people out there want to find love. The only thing I can say is take some time to be alone. And when I say alone, a lot of people have this concept, oh, I've been single for a year. You're still sleeping with people. That's not being alone.
That's not alone.
Be alone.
Yes.
Be celibate. Take the time to do the inner work. Reflect. And it's not going to be easy, but take that time to get yourself to be ready, to make sure that you're embodying the traits in yourself that you want to find in a partner. And really ask yourself, what is that life that you want to build with that person? What are the life goals and dreams that you want to share and build with them? What does that life look like? And are you striving to start to build that foundation? Because you have to start it first. And that person will come in and then they'll help you finish the foundation. And then because you're both going to bring, attribute things to the table that the other wouldn't. Yeah. You know, like me personally, I know that I'm meant to share in building a spiritual business with my future partner. That's part of why I started the podcast. I feel like she and I are meant to build that together one day. I don't know if you
Beautiful.
know To Be Better, the podcast. If you don't, I'd highly recommend it. It's an
I've
amazing
heard of it,
podcast.
but I haven't listened.
Yeah, basically what I'm wanting to build is like a more spiritual and conscious relationship based version of that.
Okay.
Um,
I'll check it
helping
out.
people build that spiritual and conscious based relationship, whether religious or spiritual, it doesn't really matter.
Yep.
And people specifically trying to I want to say promote to people who are looking for that spiritual counterpart, who do feel part of their life path and purpose is to share in spiritual service with their partner, to shine their light, to help others.
Beautiful.
And I do know that that's a smaller demographic of the population, but I know that those people are out there, and I know
They
that
are.
they need to guide them to know, hey,
Definitely.
it's not in your head. You're not cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Trust your gut. If that's what you feel you're drawn to, God's trying to tell you something. Listen.
100%. And I think more and more people are finding their way to spirituality, whatever that looks like for them. It's different for everyone, but more and more people are finding their way there. Still got a long way to go, obviously, in society, but it's happening, and it's just as you said, follow your path, do the inner work, and your person, the right person, will come along when the time is right.
I'm a true believer in God and the universe. Everything happens in divine time.
Yes, 100%.
And when it's meant to happen, it will. And now a lot of times, I don't think there's no coincidences. Everything happens for a reason. We may not see it at the time, and it's usually in retrospect. I'm like, oh, okay, that makes more sense now. I get it. Light bulb moment. I don't know if it'd be inappropriate, but would it be appropriate to promote my podcast?
You're more than welcome
take
to promote it here. No, let us know.
So, my podcast on YouTube is the Conscious Counterpart. I'm still very much in the beginning stages of it. Only have a couple episodes up.
That's okay.
Eventually want to get the equipment and up the production value of it.
Yes.
But like I said, it's focused on helping people get ready to embody and step into, and also find and then build that spiritual and more consciously based relationship.
Beautiful.
With their partner.
When I
So
share this,
truly,
when I work out where I'm sharing this, I'll share the link to your YouTube podcast.
Thank you so
I'll
much.
put it there. No worries. Well, we'll finish up there now, Taurus. It has been a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for sharing about your story and your journey and the wisdom that you've shared today. Thank you. I think it's amazing. I'll hit stop now, but I'll just say goodbye in a moment. So thank you so much.
Before you do, I just wanted to say one more thing.
Okay.
I really appreciate the work you're doing. It's been very inspiring, and it's an honor to be able to share this time with you and have a chance to be a part of this with you. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.